With the Jamboard, we were able to, I was working with the Jamboard with Russia. Come up, I'll share the draft. Sorry, I haven't done so, but I'll share it to, I don't know whether to send it to the resources or how do I post it on the main platform or how to go about it. So I'll share it. We were doing the analysis of the Jamboard, and this is how we were able to classify the information. Sorry, I'm using my phone and also my computer because that's where the work is. So if you hear me take a bit of time because I'm using both. We were able to, how we were able to lay out the Jamboard was first of all giving a brief background of the
Rahab,
task force.
your voice is very low.
You can't hear me. I don't know whether
Now,
it's
now,
my phone.
now able to, but earlier it was very low.
Okay, now I'm just giving a brief about the Jamboard and how we laid out we are just extracting information from the discussions, the brainstorming discussions we had last time. I was doing it with Russia and given his input and ideas, which I found really useful. And this is how we were able to come up with the Jamboard draft. We came up with the background of the Jamboard, how it came about. We gave a background of why we were having the brainstorming and the purpose of it. And then some of the themes that we extracted from the discussion of the Jamboard were policy and legal overview, existing guidance and gaps, maybe some of the issues that members of the task force raised, country case studies and best practices, some of the issues or examples as members gave, experiences or impacts of transitioning from care, some of the the experiences members shared about their transitioning from care in the different parts or regions of, from the task force team, the challenges and what members, those that would be required, the support required for transitioning, and the key suggestions and recommendations. I don't know whether I can't read all the things unless now I'll share the document later. But we were just extracting basically from what was being discussed. There was nothing really to draw from other places. The only thing maybe we needed to cite, to maybe give citations were maybe where people are mentioning in my country, this is what we were doing, or this is what happened. Like some of the examples from India, Argentina, you needed to like draw from those examples and see how they relate to transitioning from care and why some of them those they were they were important in this aspect. So yeah, and then also to give some examples maybe from the quotes in members' words on their experiences still to be able to show that they are real people, real experiences. There are people who are going through that. So that was also to be included. The other thing we thought of including, but after maybe some thinking, we left it out and thought maybe it would come in the brief, is uh, including the people through special situations or emergencies, special categories of people. I know we had discussed on disabilities, but We were also thinking of including people in emergency situations or emergency situations or in war, refugees, maybe with regards to care. I think that's all I can add up to at the moment, unless I think of something else, then I can bring it up as we continue with the conversation. Yeah. Yeah, and some of the, sorry, I forgot to mention, some of the recurring themes, besides mentioning the challenges, the support required, the recommendations, some of the themes that kept popping up from the brainstorming one. Transition in itself, what is it about? Uh, Laws and the policies that that need to be included. Employment, issues of employment, documentation, access to services, maybe like the support system, aftercare support, housing, mental health. Yeah, those are some of the things that kept, yeah, I think that's all I have at the moment.
Rahab, will you be sharing that document?
I'll share it. I'll share it after the meeting. Then, but that's the information we extracted from the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Maya, I see your hand is up. But before you ask a question, I want to hear from Rasha. Were you doing this together with Rahab?
Yes, thank you so very much. And hello, everyone. Good morning and good day and good evening from Bangkok, where I'm calling in from. Yes, Rahab and I were in conversation about the draft Jamboard narrative. And I think Rahab shared most of the contents and discussions. I think what we also discussed was the opportunity of this call and perhaps some of the follow-up communications to approach everyone for additional information, because we also identify different gaps in information, and at times it was challenging to actually link up different statements with the originators of the statements, with those of you who participated in the Jamboard exercise. And I would just like to add, we were constantly tempted to expand on that work and almost to begin to shape the skeleton of the draft. But then we reminded each other we should be hearing from the group first, and this should be discussed in this call and in the next calls in terms of the proposed structure for the technical brief, and how could everyone contribute. So I would just limit my inputs to these for the time being. And again, thank you so much, Rahab, for your leadership around this work.
Thank you, Lasha. Can you pronounce your name, please?
Yeah, my name is Rasha. Same like Rahab.
Rasha.
It's Rasha. Yeah, Rasha.
Okay. Thank you for that update. Sumaya, you had your hand up, or maybe we can take the question before we continue.
Thank you so much, Mike, for the opportunity. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my question was, I was responding to Rahab and what Florence had said. I feel it would be better, as you're presenting all the Jamboards or the outcomes from the Jamboards, at least you could give it as a presentation so that people are able to see what they contributed to what, or what is coming out mostly. And of course, I realize some of us may be absent in some of the meetings and they're able to see all this. So I would suggest, I don't know whether it's coming up in the next activities that we are going to do, but I advise maybe we could have a presentation about that and we see what is coming out, which particular themes are coming out, and like we'll be able to have a consensus on what we did. Thank you.
I think Rahab and Rasha, they are going to organize a presentation, I think, for the coming meeting. We will see how to go about that. But you're right, Maya. We will have a presentation on that on our next meeting. Also, we had on our agenda, we also need an update on the brief. And Rahab and Rasha, still, this is for you too.
Rahab, would you like to go first, or would you like me to take over from here?
I can, at the moment, we are still like on gathering information and trying. You see, like when we are doing the Jamboard, you know, every time you have to look for information or data, then there is always this thing, okay, we need to consult, we need to ask this kind of people to help us with this and that. That's where we are at, because it's not like once you gather the details, it stops there. Then once you continue going through the information, you're like, okay, I didn't think of it like that before, but now since I'm going through the document, you are like, okay, we need to consult or reach out to other people other than the network that we have, you know, members of the task force, their network, and maybe other organizations that work with our networks, feel like changing the way we care and other people, those that you know. But then as you continue interacting with the documents or other people, then you are like, okay, I didn't think this number of people would be useful to this work. Like Florence mentioned in our WhatsApp chat of Stahili, I hadn't like thought of Stahili in my head, but now she mentioned they'll be good to work with, and also discussing with Russia, like some of the teams that I have worked with before in this year reform work, that would be useful. That I didn't think that they needed to be there, but after our discussion, I think at the moment we are still on the collecting information and trying to make sense of what we are having a look, having, and then now starting to think about how do we want once you think how the head is gonna look like, then I think the rest of the brief will flow. Because without knowing how the head should look like, then it means then we are not. Yeah, at the moment we are just
Rahab,
contacting.
sorry, it's Florence. Sorry, can I just clarify, because I think I'm getting confused now. There are two different things. There's the Jamboard, which has been part of the brainstorming that this group has done over, I think it was 3 different sessions, 3 meetings. And you've been gathering that, and you've been organizing, extracting that information. And then separate to that, there's the matrix and all of the literature, the documentations that some of the members have contributed. And then Rasha is going to be speaking about some of the other work and the other literature and documentation that he's been gathering. Yeah. So there are 2 different things. And I think what members and Maya was asking is that the extraction of the Jamboard, can you share that document, which is, so you're right, that the information is constantly going to continue evolving, but the Jamboard was, you know, part of a 3-session brainstorming, which you've been working on. So it'd be great to have that as a presentation. So, you know, members can see reflected what are the key themes, the key issues that came up?
Okay.
What are some of the things that maybe members want to clarify further or want to add to?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It's there. It's there. The document is there, but I hadn't really thought about a PowerPoint presentation. But now somebody mentioned it. It will make it easy because it's a bit chunky. So
Yes. Yeah.
if we are to do a PowerPoint, then that will just split it into small bits to make it easy for everyone to understand. So it's okay. I'll do that
Thank you,
and
Rahab.
share with Rash.
Thank you. So maybe we can ask Rashana to talk about the matrix and the documentations and the other informations and evidence that are being gathered.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Florence and Rahab. So just for everyone to have a better understanding, and for those of you who are not familiar, with me and my appearance and my involvement in the process. So I joined recently and currently helping and assisting this process as a consultant. And together with Rahab, we engage in these discussions, not only about the contents of the Jamboard and how to organize it and translate it into a narrative, but also about the broader structure and potential contents of the technical brief. I'd just like to remind everyone, and I believe it would be helpful to resend the document that's been produced in terms of guidance for technical briefs. And as I mentioned previously, Rahab and myself had some free-floating discussions about the technical brief, but since that's going to be a collective effort, we thought it was best left to be discussed within the task force, and then, if need be, to expand it to more stakeholders who would be potentially involved. So while we've been doing this, I was also busy screening for different relevant literature that could be useful for the drafting process for this thematic brief. And then I'd just like to give you a couple of background information about the guidance for collecting resources for this thematic brief. And Margot was very helpful in creating a graphic for these guidelines. Let me try and upload it now so that everyone can see it, or maybe Margot could quickly upload the actual graphic that she herself created. Margot, would that be okay with you?
Yes, definitely. I will upload it in the chat. Would you like me to also share it on my screen, or?
Yes, that would be great, because it's only 2 pages, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
There's a version in English and another one in Romanian. And just to give you a flavor on what I've been guided when screening for the relevant literature, I mean, here you'll see a kind of myriad of different documents that are recommended for use. Definitely, these documents and these different resources to contribute to the drafting process of the thematic brief on transitioning from care and participation of care leavers are also to remind us that we are not starting from scratch, and it's really important to build on vast amount of literature, documents, important conventions, guidance, but basically to build on best practice that is identified by all of you and also other colleagues who are involved in one way or another, or will be involved in the drafting process. So again, this is an open call for all of you to share the documents you are aware of, because yes, I did a real kind of deep dive into the online resources. And then, of course, there's been a phenomenal work done with the Better Care Network library. So many of those documents are revised or rather retrieved from the Better Care library. But then we are also aware that there might be other documents who are not necessarily uploaded on different websites, or the documents that are waiting to be shared, and the documents that are encapsulating and describing best practice or emerging promising practice. Then it's also about different organizational documents coming from different reports, different case studies, evaluations. In my search so far, I've been focusing on the Better Care Network membership. In other words, the organizations, big or medium size or not so big, that bring in different important resources. And many of these documents are already, as I mentioned a minute ago, on the Better Care Network library. And then also specific guidelines, specific guidance, handbooks, different toolkits on transitioning from care. And then you'll see in a minute, because I'll give you also a walk through the matrix that I started populating. We've broken the transitioning into different sub phases, sub stages: preparation for care, and then aging out of care, and more detail will follow. Definitely specific handbooks or manuals or different materials covering different topics, and there's loads of them, which is good news. Are more than welcome to share. The also good news, but I think challenging news, is that there's so many, and it's so easy to kind of slip into collecting, vast amount of documents, and therefore the matrix remains open-ended. And you'll see in a minute when I begin to walk you through it. Of course, I'm sure we all agree, and we all are in for the evidence-based approach and research, because as we know, thematic briefs will be aiming to reach policymakers, different governments, different sections of different governments. And we all know that we'll be challenged to prove it, to explain where does the information come from. So evidence and research are really, really important here, so we can quote different sources while we are helping ourselves to them. Country case examples are really important because they add more flesh on the bones, because, we may end up discussing about different policies, about different laws, how they're being implemented. But country case examples as to how all this has been translated into practice, or what are the challenges in translating or implementing different policy documents, different legal provisions, are really bringing the technical brief closer to life. And that's really important for the technical brief. Technical brief needs to be alive, needs to connect to what's going on the ground. As I mentioned, different existing policy statements are being harvested and will be looked into during the drafting process, because we definitely want to emphasize, promote, and champion good practice, especially progressive practice from across different regions. And then, as mentioned, there's a lot of existing frameworks and guidelines, and I've been collecting those for everybody's access and use. And then, of course, many of the documents, many research reports, or many academic articles or key policy statements also tend to come up with lessons learned or findings and recommendations, So I've been trying my best to distill from different resources and available literature those lessons learned and you know, different recommendations and findings, because they I'm sure will come handy during the drafting process. So in other words, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can look into the existing guidance, analyze it further, add the first-hand knowledge that all of you are bringing in, and then you know, ensure that this thematic brief is evidence-based, is supplied and complemented with different country case studies and examples. What I've been also collecting in parallel to Rahab's work on the Jamboard are different quotes, voices of different care leavers. And, you know, it's wonderful to see that most of these reports and documents are already including those powerful voices. So Rahab and I have been discussing how helpful and useful it might be to combine what everyone who participated in the Jamboard exercise brought in with the voices that can be extracted from the literature. But again, Rahab and I are really keen to hear what do you think, and you know, whether that's okay. I'll just pause very quickly here before I give you this quick tour around the matrix to check whether there are any clarifications needed about these guidelines of for identifying resources, and to remind everyone that this remains an open-ended process and that matrix is still calling for your inputs and your contributions, and is you know, I'm speaking on behalf of the matrix here, is looking forward to be populated by your inputs. Okay, I'll just stop here for Rahab. Everyone else who would like to make any comments, or if you have any questions, we'll do our best to respond to them. Thank you.
If you have a comment or a question, please unmute and ask, or you can put it in the chat. Yes, Maya.
Hello, everyone, once again. Thank you, Rasa. Sorry, I don't know whether I pronounced that name right. And Rahab, for the work you're doing to put this together. I'm not so sure how much time we have, but I was also suggesting because you said we need to collaboratively work together with different people and different stakeholders, I would suggest if we could have let me say, a shared document that is online, and we could invite people who we feel can contribute something to this particular
We've lost you, Samia.
Before we hear back from Samia, if I may just jump in, I think the link to the matrix has been shared already, and I believe you know, Margot and myself will be more than happy to reshare it both in the chat box here, but also in a follow-up email that will follow this call. And I'm just checking if you can see the matrix on the screen. I tried to upload it. It's not there.
We can't see it, Rasha. Do you want to try again?
Okay, sure. Because
And just to reaffirm what Rasha said, the matrix has been shared many months ago. You all have access to it on Google. We will reshare the links, but it's part of it. But then maybe what Sumaya, you're asking is, as we're starting to work on a document, a draft of the thematic brief, and we're starting to organize the information, that document will also be shared through a Google form. Yeah, I think that's what you might be asking. But do correct me, Sumaya, if that's not, that wasn't what your question was about. But yes, it is going to be in the form of a shared document, which members are going to be able to contribute to. But the matrix is already shared. Margot, Rasha, do you need help with sharing the matrix?
Yeah, I've been trying to share it, and
Yeah,
you know,
I can
I can
share
see
it. No
it on my
problem.
screen. Oh, sorry. Thank you so much.
No
And
problem.
then, okay, great. The PDF version would be great. While Margot is kindly uploading the matrix, I will just give you some quick background in addition to what I already shared. And then I believe we can also, let me just check if I can share the link as well. Yes, I'm just sharing the link in the chat box, but I would like to ask you for to focus perhaps while I'm taking you on this tour as quickly as possible, because it's massive. So here's the matrix that I hear many of you have been introduced to, and when it landed on my screen, there's been key columns defined here, as you can see, according to different themes: global, regional, and national findings and recommendations, and then practice or implementation example, including country examples, and then references in terms of where this document can be accessed. So in its current form, Matrix has 18 themes, and you know, there's an open invitation for all of you to keep on adding themes. As I did the document screening, I myself took a liberty of adding through 3 new themes, and I'll tell you in a minute which those themes are. And then, since I really love this exercise and you know, have been diving deeper into the existing literature, I managed so far to upload around 200 items and titles. And I was tempted to continue, but I thought I should pause because there's so much out there, and give you, first of all, give you a quick tour around what's in there. And this will also add to what we discussed previously about the guidelines. You know, I was looking into the guidelines and being really careful to have the drafting process on mind at all times, while looking into the documents that kind of qualify and that meet the requirements and parameters under the broader drafting process. So I'll give you a bit more detailed illustration with the first theme, which is around states and governments' obligations to support children and young people transitioning from care. And then I'll give you a bit of a galloping sort of tour, because, you know, there's 17 more themes and headings, and there's no way, you know, I could share all this with you in this call. But after the call, you may find some extra time to access the matrix through the link. And I'm also happy to share this PDF version, because unfortunately, when it's online, some of these columns tend to dance around. So I've been trying also to maintain the balance between different themes, between the geographical origins. In other words, apart from the global documents, I've been also trying my best to see different documents from different regions, different countries represented, as you will see. And then also types of different documents, including policy documents, case studies, reference to different videos, reference to different guidelines, existing frameworks, handbooks, toolkits, you name it. So it's a real kind of mixed kind of bag here. And as you can see, the whole transitioning from care section starts with the UN General Assembly 2019 resolution on children's rights and alternative care, which I'm more than sure everyone is aware of and quite familiar with. And then in parallel, there's their reference to national care reform strategies in Kenya, some recommendations around or from life as a care lever in Kenya. And as you can see, there are specific references to different pages where some of those themes and some of the contents are being discussed in more detail. On the far right column, you see the reference, and there will always be a link through which you can quickly access the document. We may begin to scroll down. Thank you, Margot. Again, I'm not going to go into detail, but just giving you a flavor of what kind of documents are there. And as I am doing this, also how potentially those could be used. So here, as you can see, a lot of different policy documents, statements. And here I'll just like to make a quick pause. There is this amazing document prepared by UNICEF and Eurochild, where they offered a summative analysis of can we go just a little bit down, please? No, up, sorry. Yes. Yeah, right there. On children in alternative care in the Child Guarantee National Action Plans, where there's a lot of references to care levers as well. So again, I'm not going to go into detail, but here we have a gold mine of information referring to what's going on across Europe and specific countries being named. Let's go a little bit lower. We may continue to screen it down or scroll it down. So during the drafting process, we can refer to existing efforts, and here's the summary of findings broken down by different countries that are specified. And if you go a little bit down, we'll have a specific, and we may pause here, sorry. I know it's a challenge to scroll down if you're not presenting, and thank you, Margot, for
no problem.
If you can just scroll down slowly, please, because I also emphasize the content. No, sorry, we need to go a little bit backwards just to illustrate a little bit more, please, because wherever I found reference to care levers or transitioning out of care, I put it in bold, like here. So, for example, which national financial resources will be used to fund the plan measures for children in alternative care included in the national action plans. And then further down, I think, there are references to children and people with disabilities and which countries included different commitments and guidance in the national action plans. We may scroll down further. Thank you. And then what's the status of different pieces of research supporting national plans of action. Let's move further down, please. Yes, here is the reference to children with disabilities, which countries already have progressive national plans of action, and then migrant children, children of different ethnic minorities, assessment of their systems, addressing the risk of violence, etc., etc. You know, I don't want to take too much time. And here, this is the reference which countries refer specifically to the situation of care leavers in their national action plans. I'm fully aware that these information are quite detailed, but I think during the drafting process, it would be great to have this information readily available and already extracted so that we don't need to spend another couple of months, you know, diving deeper into the existing available information. But we already know where we can find it and how, and then we may discuss how to use it. I mentioned definitely the intention to build on the existing work, be it a policy, be it a practice, ensuring evidence-based character of the thematic brief by quoting the references and resources. And then loads of this information could be also used to build a quick introductory situation analysis. And then the available recommendations here could also potentially inform recommendations or policy statements of the thematic brief that we will be drafting over the next months. And as I mentioned, there will be a lot of quotes and voices by care leavers from all over the world. So broadening the spectrum of voices, the voices that you are bringing in based on your own lived experiences with the other voices from the literature. And then, you know, topping it all off with the best practice or emerging promising practice that is included in this matrix. So I think we may proceed with scrolling down this particular section. Yes, then, for example, there's a joint statement of the two committees, which is right here. The committees on the right of the child and the committee on the rights of persons with disabilities. I think there's a typo somewhere there because I suspect we are talking about the committee of the rights of persons with disabilities, but I may be mistaken. So one of the themes in the matrix, and I believe that will be mirrored in the thematic brief, is about care leavers with disabilities. We all know about the overrepresentation of children with disabilities, with different abilities or different disabilities in care, which translates into care living process. And I was really pleased to find a lot of rich literature around it, concrete experiences, how it could be done, how it could be approached, what are the challenges, what are lessons learned. Let's move further down, please. So as I mentioned, I just extracted some of the information from this particular joint statement that we could help ourselves to. And I see Florence would like to intervene or share something. Please, Florence.
Thank you, Rasha. No, I think this is great. I just wanted to emphasize, as you said, that it's really important to have the source of the information and the context in which those recommendations come from, but also to be sure, because it is so much information, to look specifically at the recommendations that address the situation and the practice in relation to transitioning, the process of transitioning of individuals transitioning from care and back into community, family living. So I think one of the challenges we're going to have is to make sure that we extract those recommendations out of all of that material, because I think it's all relevant, but to make sure that the thematic brief addresses specifically the different aspects and the different lessons learned around transitioning from care, from the whole spectrum, as you point out. So it might be helpful, Rasha, to go back to that first column that kind of divides the categories because they are divided across different stages of transitioning. So
Absolutely.
the column on the left, which I think we're not seeing, or at least I'm not seeing on my screen, which might.
Thank you so much, Florence. You'll see further down lower into this matrix. That's exactly what I started doing, but I also left it deliberately broader for this meeting to hear what do you think, how broad or narrow or how focused we would need to be, because from this broad, 18 headings and currently 200 titles, and I think 180 pages that this current matrix has, we definitely need to narrow down. And I didn't even start biting or diving into the INTRAC documents, and there's loads of documents that INTRAC harbors, Sorry, Florence, were you suggesting to go back to the headings, or?
I just thought if we could see the left, I don't know, Marco, whether you can scroll towards the left of the screen.
And
And then maybe to the category. Maybe you're left and you're not at the category. Maybe that's why. But just to show some of the categories, to remind people that these are broken down according to different categories.
Yes. So we are scrolling down and going to just these 18 themes. Sorry, I didn't prepare any formal presentation, and this could go into one. I think if you please just scroll down, Margot, this only the first heading has, I think, 38 pages, and these are, as you can see,
Oh,
these
that's why we're not seeing the left.
Yeah.
Yeah, the far left, the initial
yeah.
column on the left. So these are just different resources, but we are moving down, scrolling down to just as Florence asked, to make sure that everybody's familiar with the headings, with the main headings. If you please continue going down. Yes, and you may just scroll down.
You probably have to scroll down quite a bit, Marco.
Quite a bit.
There's a lot of documents. Yeah.
There's a lot of documents, a lot of resources.
Category. Yeah.
I got really infatuated by the literature, and kind of probably also got carried away by kind of populating the matrix. Yes, I think we are close to the second heading. 35, 36. Yes.
There we go.
So the second heading is preparation before transitioning, which then is followed by, if you continue scrolling down, we'll soon hit the next heading, or not so soon. So the number 3, which is all looking into different resources that have to do with transitioning, different types of support needed. And as rightly suggested here, that may need to be broken down into different subcategories. So this one is a chunk of resources that look into different support needs or types of support needed, or cases when various supports are needed at the same time. And if you continue scrolling down, sliding down this slide to the next one, which is number 4. This number 4 will look into, I think, concrete. Yes. Further down, please.
I missed it.
Should be, yes, extended support beyond 18, including aging out. And there's still 13 headings. We have 14. We have the total of 18 headings. Yes, please.
We don't have to go through them all, Rasha,
no?
maybe. We don't have to go through them all.
Because I just wanted to. All right.
Yeah.
So across all these thematic headings, and then so that means that we need to okay, so let's now go back, because if we went back, then I would definitely be tempted to go into different resources that we can just do also by continuing. So for example, here, we can see these are different support needs. And here we can see different books, different reports, looking into different aspects of financial support, different, let's move a little bit further, please. Oh, yes, Aditya is asking for the floor. Yes, please, Aditya.
Yeah, I mean, you can actually use a Excel format. I think you have prepared this list on the Word document, and that's why it is very struggling. I mean, for everyone to struggling to read. The content is very rich. The only thing
Yes.
is that to scroll it will take time. So if you can
Yes.
pull all this and make it in the Excel, that would be really grateful. I mean, helpful for
Thank you.
everyone.
No, absolutely, Aditya. Thank you so much. Just to clarify, it is already in Excel form, and when you access the link that's been shared in the chat box, it's all in the Excel form. I just opted to use the PDF version because what
No,
happens...
it's a docs. It's a docs.
No,
It is in
it's-
document. It is in
Oh,
Word. Sorry,
yeah.
just to be clear, it is in Word. And the you're absolutely correct, Aditya. The challenge, and you'll know this, there isn't a good solution for this because the Excel is much better at things like scrolling and so on. But it's pretty difficult when the words, you have too many words within each Excel cell. It gets really quite challenging. But I think you're right that overall, having this into an Excel spreadsheet might be easier to manage than having it in Word. So we can transfer that to an Excel spreadsheet. But it does, Excel also does come up with its own problem when we have other examples where we've used a similar exercise but using Excel, and it does also come up with issues when the text within each cell gets quite lengthy. So definitely good suggestion, Aditya, and we can transfer this into Excel and share that. But just bear in mind that it's not perfect either.
Right.
Or
Thank you
we
very
can,
much.
I would also suggest, or we can create a hyperlink and just like say 250 word, we can give the a very brief background note about each this, because there are 38 only themes which we have brought, right?
Absolutely.
So it would be easy to accept only just giving the brief background or information about a particular literature.
Exactly. Thank you so much for that, Aditya. Just to again clarify, 18 headings under each, there are different resources. And for example, a good illustration is the one on the screen, which is about future savings. The very brief description is to the left. What is this report talking about, and what could be, in what sense it could be useful? For example, exploring these 4 areas: educational, parenthood, homelessness, and incarceration. So, however, when there are concrete recommendations or findings or lessons learned, these recommendations and findings for easier convenience are already in the matrix. In cases when those are overly lengthy, what I did was just indicating under the links, recommendations or findings or lessons are from page, for example, 24 to page 36. Because, of course, I didn't want to cut and paste 7 pages because then there would be thousands of pages. I think these are practical issues. If you agree, I would just walk you towards the end of the document to give you some more illustration what's in there. Hold on. Yes, for example, here's what it is about. For example, independent living is the literature review. In that column, it explains what it is about. Here, it focuses more onto the column next to the link. What are, and we may scroll a little bit further down, please, Margot. Thank you. what are the key findings? What is the actual discussion? And I know it can always be further trimmed down. I think that's one of the next steps. But then again, it's one or the other. And then, you know, what I did, I was putting in bold any keywords or key areas like education and employment. So if you need education and employment related references during the drafting process, this is where we'll find them among the other resources. Let's go further down, because I'm also keen to kind of take you out of this matrix and offer it to you for further, you know, social exclusion, theme or topic and how it's been addressed. Let's go further down. Usually it's not that long, but if, for example, it's, yeah, so the description is very brief. And then, for example, you know, if it's about data on population, what concrete learning is there that we are deriving from a specific study? And then, you know, we can use it, we can help ourselves to it, or we may decide to kind of park it for later. Let's move further down, please, because I just want to indicate, and more, please. See, it's usually brief, okay. So, and here it's about, okay, so this is a briefing paper aiming to share good practices. So we can find a lot of good practice here and different information exchange on preparation for living care and aftercare support. I'm sorry, we kind of completely skipped the previous themes, but I leave it to you to explore further. Then we move on to reintegration into families and communities and related transitions. Again, loads of good stuff there. Let's move down, please, or further down. So, for example, concrete research reports from Guatemala, from Israel, from China, from Japan, from post-Soviet Union countries, European countries, or, you know, Central Asian countries, the former Soviet republics, of course, from different African regions, and from the US and Canada as well. So, you know, I've been really conscious to look into geographic balance, but also the different specific models. So you can see this STAR model with 6 domains of well-being, which might be helpful in guiding the case management process used for integration. So let's move down. Again, just giving you some quick examples, what's out there. And then, you know, if there's a specific model, I chose to include a little bit more information, but otherwise I was trying to be brief. There's this white paper, and, you know, case workers guidebook for case management. In other words, like in the actual brief, thematic brief, we may opt or we may wish to make a reference to the existing resources, and this is why they are extracted here. So we already passed page 100, but we'll move quickly towards the next chapters, and then I'll just ask Margot to stop if there's something of particular. Oh, yes, for example, here, there's one study that looks particularly into LGBTQ caregivers. And these resources are not necessarily frequent or rich. And we always talk about inclusion. We always speak about diversifying different groups and making sure that they are covered and involved. So here's one reference again from the Better Care Network Library, how theory can be informed by intersectionality and, you know, different, not only feminist theories and perspectives, but also LGBTQ former foster youth and, you know, their voices. Let's move further down and scroll on, please. Thank you.
Rasha,
Mm,
I'm wondering whether we can leave a bit of time because we've
Yes,
got just about
absolutely.
15 minutes left just for discussion. Thank you so much for this.
Okay,
Just
so
for a
the
sum up and
meeting,
yeah.
I leave it to everyone to, really kind of explore through that link. And I'll keep on populating the matrix. But then any comments from anyone regarding the matrix, and thank you, Aditya, already for your kind of alarming that information needs to be more focused and less wordy. We'll think of the way how that could be achieved. Thank you all for your attention so far. There's still, I think, 80 plus pages further down. But as Florence rightly suggests, let's leave it here and, save or open the floor for discussion. I'll just stop here. Thank you.
And so much. I think, Margot, you've got your hand up.
Yes, just very quickly, as I was looking through that really comprehensive matrix, Rasha, it looks great. And I completely understand and your logic as we were going through it. But I'm wondering how other people are feeling in terms of the level of technical explanation that when we're asking you to identify resources from your region, what level of detail are we asking for? Not everyone in the task force are researchers or may describe it in the way that maybe we have described it in the matrix. So I just wanted to put that out for discussion. If people are feeling a little scared by writing those descriptions, kind of like, oh, I'm not a researcher. So just wanted to put that out for discussion if possible.
Aditya, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I really appreciate Rasha and the team who has tried to, brought so many information on table, and it will be really great if you can now, club it and put it in like kind of online digital library kind of thing. Just imagine how we can make it more precise, concise, and then tap or create some kind of like a website where everyone can access that and disseminate, and also add on more resources within that particular server. So that would really kind of engagement, as well as it's kind of like, making more dissemination of this information as well as engagement. So that was good. Now after listening this and hearing and seeing this, I started imagining of all next step how we can develop this thing. Yeah, thank you.
Rasha, your hand is up.
I just wanted to quickly explain again something that's been said, but just in case, it didn't come across clearly. The matrix, the links to the matrix is accessible to everyone, and basically everyone can keep on populating the matrix in real time. And so, for example, you may play a little game, if you will, and check when I'm populating, you will see that I'm typing. So it's like, it's there in the real time for everyone to, what you are suggesting, Aditya, is already there, and the links are there. And of course, we want to hear from you now, but I would really encourage you to take a really quick glance through the current matrix and send us an email and tell us, we like this, we don't necessarily like this. Please suggest how you feel and think it could be done better. And then, as Margot said, please don't feel intimidated by the amount of and diversity of information. We want you to be inspired and add your resources, to kind of complement the resources that were brought in through this kind of screening, Bettercare Network Library and some external sources. Thank you.
Thank you, Rasha. I just wanted to add, and also following up on what Aditya said, just to remind that there are different purposes here. One, which is these are the resources that together with the Jamboard, as Rahab presented, we're bringing together a whole range of evidence, including the meeting we had at the last with Interact that presented their learning from research. So we're gathering all of these different pieces of evidence and organizing them around key aspects and lessons learned around transitioning, as Rasha explained at the beginning. And that is in order to inform, it's going to get condensed, it's going to be reorganized in terms of what are the priorities, what are the key learning as part of the thematic brief, in terms of what are we globally saying to policymakers in terms of what they need to do in order to make transitioning more effective, safer, more participative, etc., leading to better outcome. So that's that's probably the most obvious reason we're doing this, which is the very purpose of this task force, to bring together that global knowledge and recommendation for policymakers about what works and what does not work on transitioning. And we know a great deal about what doesn't work, for sure, and some of it about what works. And you, from your own expertise and experience, really have that knowledge inside out. The second part, which I think, Aditya, you're alluding to, which I totally agree, is that, and I think Rasha was also speaking to some of that, is that all of this information we're gathering together is really exciting. It's kind of, as Rasha points out, we're seeing there's actually a lot of learning around transitioning, both from academic literature, from care experience networks that have, already drawn your knowledge and expertise around what works and what doesn't work, from policy documents, etc., as the guidelines have shown. Now, what will be great is to have that information made more easily accessible to everybody, so that we can have, and as Rasha pointed out, a lot of the resources are in the BCN library. But just to clarify, the BCN library is really all documents. So it's not BCN members or whatever, but it's any documents that is published by anyone globally around children's care is included. Yeah, but the point is it's a voluminous. The BCN library, I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, but it's over 15,000 documents, resources, tools. It's a lot of documents, and it's growing every day because Marco is doing an incredible job gathering that information every day. So one of the things we discussed with Rahab and Mai and Rasha and Mario at the time would be possibly we could also create a specific site, maybe a page and so on, where we kind of we bring together so that you could easily identify what are the key documents on different aspects of transitioning. In other words, all of this hard work that's being done to gather all of that information could then be made publicly accessible more easily to anyone who wants to find out what has been said about planning for transitioning in different contexts, what's been said about aftercare, what's been said about economic support for care leavers, etc. So that's one of the other outcomes of this process, which with all of this work that's being done can also then be developed into a specific section, for example, of the BCN library, where you can easily access and organize the information around transitioning. So I think Aditya, it's responding to what you're saying and to some of the discussion we've had about this, hopefully. Yeah, Rasha, please.
Thank you so much. Just very quickly, because this echoes one of the many discussions Rahab and I had, but we're saving for later, and that later is now. We thought, there's no way, as you are rightly suggesting, Florence, just this tiny section of the BCN library that I kind of dug into had 900 pages. And one of the ways to kind of conquer the monster, and it's a good monster, is it's a friendly dragon, is to perhaps express interest in specific themes where we bring specific expertise, and then have a couple of colleagues creating smaller groups and looking into 2 or 3 themes, rather than expecting everyone to go through the 18 headings and 200 titles and all this and this matrix is growing. So just throwing this on the table, and also to, to give legitimacy to our discussion, that Rahab and I had. So just for consideration, everybody's consideration. Thanks.
It's a lot of information. The one thing I would add as well is language. So one of the limitations in the matrix so far, although we do have some of the Spanish speaking documents in there, is that it's fairly limited in terms of other languages. But we would urge you, if you're working, colleagues in Latin America, for example, and there are documents that only exist in Spanish that are not translated, or that exist in another language, in Romanian, in Hindi, whatever, we would ask that you identify these documents, and then we would then identify to what extent the learning, the key recommendation could be extracted and added to the matrix and translated for that purpose. So we also rely on you, who are the expert in your own countries, in your own region, and of the knowledge to actually help us extract that information that might be in a different language. Mercedes, please.
Sí, la verdad que yo no tenía como la información de que iban, o sea, necesitaban también español, porque de hecho creo que yo compartí 2 o 3 documentos que nosotros originalmente lo tenemos en español, obviamente porque hablamos en español, pero se lo compartí solamente en inglés, así que ahí tenemos como el mismo documento en los 2 idiomas.
And any other documents, and I know there are many that have been produced by the incredible networks of care leavers in Latin America that have done their own research. We've collaborated on some. Please, when those documents are only available in Spanish, help us identify the documents that are relevant and the key recommendations, and then we can work on getting them translated. For example, I know from working with Michael, who unfortunately can't be with us today, that the Colombian network has worked on a really interesting documents, produced a really interesting documents around, what is families for CareRx? What is a family? What does that look like? What are the social networks that are critical? And that has huge implication, of course, for the transitioning of young person and adults that move out of care. And so, unfortunately, I think it's only available in Spanish. And I'm like thinking, okay, we really need the Spanish speakers to help us identify those documents, those recommendations. And then maybe we can identify, okay, these recommendations, we can at least, if we can't translate the whole document, we might be able to translate at least the recommendation. But we need you, your resources and in your own language, and we need your help to identify and bring them to this matrix, and then we can work on how to get them translated, if at all possible. Thank you. Rasha.
Yes, sorry to jump in again. Just to say, some of these 18 headings, and as mentioned, please feel free to propose more as relevant. Some of them are super well populated, or maybe even overpopulated, whereas the others still look a little bit thin. And I'm happy to draw your attention. I was hoping to be able to do it as scrolling down, but this is, the matrix is so fat already that there was no way to do it. But I'm happy to do it in an email to sum up and to say, please, if you have any documents around this and this and this topic, pay special attention around it. I added some new topics like gender dimensions, because there's a lot of great literature explaining how is transitioning from care differently affecting young women on so many different aspects, but also young men. And then another one about and around emergencies, because, our whole world is living out of emergencies these days. and transitioning is happening also in emergencies. And then I think there was one on youth engagement, because there's already one on the right to be consulted, but those two could be merged. Anyway, to again prevent myself from sharing too much information, because there's always temptation, I'm happy to draw your attention to those topics and headings that are less populated and crave your inputs. Thank you.
Just to flag that we're at the last 4 minutes of our meeting. I don't know, Rahab, Mercedes, whether you want to, any colleagues have any final questions or?
Yeah,
comments?
just to comment or to say that we've been since day one asking for this documentation that Russia is putting together. So I'm really, it's really nice that we had this update, and I'm hoping that everyone is now well aware of what we are looking for. And we have 2 or 3 ways to submit these documents. You can use the form that Margot created, and we can of course share it again. And then you can just email Florence or Margot or Russia or me or Mercedes, those are from the Spanish speaking side. And you can just all post it on our group on the platform. Yeah. And there's at the beginning of Russia's presentation on the updates, he shared the graphic. What it really, if we can have that back, Margot, for a second. Yeah, yeah, Margot, thank you for the link. So the graphic, what is really the resources we are looking for. So everyone, please play your part and contribute to this. Thank you. And that's all. Maybe Florence or Rahab, they have something to say.
I don't have, but we'll be reaching out to people when we think that there will be information that we may require or their input. So that's all I can say at this point. And thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you, Rahab. And just to add then that the next, as we discussed earlier, the next meeting of the task force, Rahab, maybe in collaboration with Russia, will then present the some of the key lessons learned from the Jamboard that you have contributed to, so that we also ensure that we organize that information, those recommendations, and that we can bring this as well as a source of evidence as well as we start building the outline of that thematic brief. We start making a decision around what are some of the key themes, the key recommendations that are coming out, and start thinking of what do we need to have in those recommendations to policymakers globally on transitioning. So thank you so much for all your work so far.
Sure.
I think that's it.
Maybe Mercedes, you have something to say? Okay, I see she shakes her head. Yeah, and please, for better preparation, it would be better if we try to keep time in our meetings. And also, if you are not going to attend a meeting, and just give us a heads up. Say, I'm going to miss this meeting because of this and this. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time as always, and let's get the resources coming in.
Thank you all.
And bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good rest of your day or evening or afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks and bye.